This show is a member of the Planetside Podcast Network. To learn more, go to planetsidepodcasts.com.
Welcome to I Shouldn't Have to Say This, the podcast where we discuss topics we believe requires critical and nuanced thinking. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at saythiscast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at saythiscast, and go to saythiscast.com if you want to hear previous episodes. Hello, Party Podcast people. Today, we're talking about the worst argument for capitalism. I'm Nicole, and I'm joined here today by my co-host, Janra.
You had to think about that for a second, huh?
I did.
Am I co-host?
Co-host? Producer? Editor?
Producer?
Anyway.
So, worst argument for capitalism. Let's go.
If you ask your average capitalism-supporting layman, or even somebody slightly more competent than that, why do you support capitalism? You're liable to get a myriad of answers, but the one that you'll hear probably more than any other is capitalism just works. It's how we've been doing things for a couple hundred years, and it's better than any economic system we've ever used. And hot take, I'm going to go out here on a limb and say technically they're right. Capitalism is a better and more efficient system of allocating resources than any system that humans have ever used on a large scale. It's better than our simple trading. It's better than feudalism, where lords would dole out protection in exchange for hard labor, and peasants lived hard and poor lives where they honestly still weren't safe from competing lords and whatnot.
Nicole, I'm going to have to get your leftist card, please.
Yeah.
You got a black mark on there?
No, I'm keeping it. I'm keeping it. No one can take that shit from me. I'm also a pro-gun leftist. Anyways. I don't own any guns, by the way. I'm LARPing. Anyways. But though we still engage in colonialism, we live in a fair bit more of a fair system than our early years of capitalism as well. Capitalism has evolved since we started using it. But this isn't really a good argument for why we should keep capitalism going into the future. Let me explain. Each of those economic models I mentioned, feudalism, our early mercantilist years, our simple grug trading, was a triumph for human society. Over time, humans have found more and more equitable and efficient ways of dividing labor and trading for the necessities that we need. Trade is a big deal. Coinage was a big deal. Credit was revolutionary. As we march into the future, these systems that we built allowed people to do more and more stuff that we take for granted today. Art, music, science, medicine, these were specializations people were only able to focus on because they were freed from the burden of having to personally hunt the boars to feed themselves or erect their own homes. The advent of iron and blacksmithing were only things that happened because the blacksmith didn't have to dedicate 100% of their time to figuring out how they would get clean water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The steady march of progress has led us to a more plentiful world, by and large. There's more wealth in the world right now than has ever existed in human history. Now, in terms of how that's divided, we need to discuss further. But the fact remains there's more wealth, and to be perfectly honest, more individuals on the planet have more wealth than they had in the past. Historically speaking. In other words, there are winners and losers. But on the whole, capitalism has benefited almost every human alive today in one way or another, whether it's medication or education or school or foods that we couldn't imagine getting before, or, providing the British with spices, because God knows they didn't spice that shit before they colonized India.
Actually, let me ask you a question. When you say that people have never had as much wealth as they do right now, what do you mean by wealth? Do you mean resources? Do you mean extra resources that they can spend on things other than food and shelter?
I mean, I think that wealth refers to kind of capital, more capital that we can use and more access to resources, I suppose. So, like, there's more food right now. We could feed everybody on the earth right now if we really put our fucking minds to it. A couple hundred years ago, you couldn't say that necessarily. We didn't have the agricultural infrastructure to do that if that was something that we wanted to do. Now we just choose not to, which is pretty bad as well. But the possibility is something that's kind of new to human development. So that's what I kind of mean by wealth.
Got it.
But anyways, for all of human history, these more efficient economic systems have come up, and they've been revolutionary and really cool and great. But as you'll notice, the predominant way of doing business is no longer feudalism, nor is it grug, me give you seashell, you give me water. We're in capitalism now. So what happened to those past systems? Well, if you remember literally anything from history class, you might remember that these societies, these economic systems were used until the point where they were no longer usable. And then evolution happened. We went to the next system. We picked up something a little bit better for humanity than the last thing. And unless we're at the end of human history, it stands to reason that at some point, for better or worse, that's going to happen to capitalism. Because what we've always done and what's always worked for us doesn't mean what's always worked for us will always be what works best for us. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think we can do better.
Yeah, I've always thought, and I've always believed that humans as a whole are incredibly intelligent. We can think our way out of any problem that's put in front of us. We can, if we have the will, if we have the want, if we have the resources, and we have the time. Those three things, the will, the resources, and the time, we can do anything. And we can and will make a new system after capitalism because our culture is different than when capitalism was needed. Our world is different. And like Nicole's saying, like, we evolve, we change, we grow.
Exactly. And just to speak to that point, capitalism is currently showing some cracks. Capitalism has always favored those who pushed it upon the rest of the world. It's always favored Western white society. It's always favored men and heterosexuals and those who cement their privilege into the very fabric of capitalism. But it's a little bit deeper than right now. For the first time ever in American history, at least, there is a generation of white people that is economically downward mobile, meaning the next generation of white people will be, on average, poorer than their parents. That's something that's never happened to white people before. And let me tell you, if that's happening to white people, the story ain't much brighter for people of color. This is, in part because the billionaire class is siphoning more and more wealth that exists in the world into fewer and fewer of their pockets. Currently, just a few American men hold more wealth than the bottom 90% of the population of the earth.
So it's not just they own more wealth than 90% of the country, it's the planet.
And put together, not individually, all of us together. Right. The pie is being split between a couple of players, and then we're left to fight over scraps. And, that's no wonder. Capitalism is a dog-eat-dog system, which rewards people who maximize their personal benefit. Society be damned. And for a while, we were able to offset this with certain political levers. We were a democracy, so the ability to mass strike and to mobilize union power and use the government to try and balance these market forces against, general societal good was enough to keep things in somewhat good balance for, the first part of the 20th century. But as it turns out, when you allow a small group of people to amass capital, they have a tendency to use it to detooth those who threaten their power. And that's why there's so much corporate money in Washington. You saw it in the early union-busting efforts in our country's history, and you see it today with Amazon's union-busting efforts. Capitalism has some inherent issues that we've constantly been coming against since we began the Great Experiment, and it feels like we're prolonging a foregone conclusion at this point. Humanity has outgrown capitalism. We cannot allow more wealth to be taken from the majority of us. It's bad for us, not just as a country, not just as people, but as a species of human beings. It is bad for most of us to suffer, so a couple of men can watch the number ticker in their bank account go up. That's not how capitalism or the allocation of resources should work. We need something that gives power back to the heart and soul of any society. The motherfucking people who live there. Shocker that.
I mean, honestly, capitalism is working as intended. Like, this is... What we're seeing is not a bug, it's a feature. The problem is the feature is, like, this is peak capitalism. The transfer of wealth.
This is the logical conclusion.
Exactly.
All of the growth that we experienced was stuff that was happening running into this logical conclusion of capitalism. And we need to start doing something. We need to change course.
And we've done that before.
Yeah.
Too. Like in the 20s and 30s, like we were getting to the point of capitalism that we are now, like with robber barons and everything, and people said no.
Yeah.
We're going to do something different.
And that was the New Deal. But that was used to prolong capitalism. I propose that we no longer prolong a system that's conclusion is so dark and so destructive for humanity, to the point that it threatens the very viability of the planet that has housed all life that we know of currently. People who argue for capitalism are fundamentally reactionary. They cling to the past as though it were a safety blanket. And frankly, if you're a capitalist, there are better arguments for capitalism. I'm not going to tell you them. I'm not here to help you come up with better arguments, just here to tell you that I'm bored of hearing the bad ones. And also, I want to do a call to action here to you. If you're a capitalist listening, this goes out to you. I invite you to choose progress. I invite you to choose the evolution of human society, to cast off the things that no longer serve us, like our countrymen in the United States cast off the divine right of kings when we became our own United States of America. I choose an economic system that the world has never seen before. We don't need socialism or capitalism, but an economy of the people, for the people, that prizes individuality as well as the growth and well-being of our community. So, find better arguments. I'd love to argue against a better argument for capitalism. The reactionary shit ain't it, no matter what part of the spectrum you're on. But, I encourage you to choose courage over cowardice and progress over fear.
Yeah, and I think what we're really saying is, if you like freedom, if you like individuality, and you don't like being controlled, then we need to evolve capitalism, right? That's what you're saying. If you love freedom, you don't want capitalism anymore. That's really the major point, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's support some good shit and stop supporting some bad shit just because it's the bad shit we've done for a while.
It's like the thesis for this entire show.
Yeah, support good things and fuck bad things. It doesn't matter what political label you put on it, but the idea that capitalism is just always what we're gonna do and will always be absolutely perfect and beautiful and we'll never need to evolve past it is a stupid argument. It's just, we're not at the end of history here, my guy. Like, I don't want to be in a cryogenic stasis, I want humanity to progress. And I think that a lot of us, capitalists or not, that's all what we want. But I think that certain people understand the need for progress better than others. So that's the episode, pretty much.
Courage over cowardice. Let's do it.
Yeah.
In our polarizing political climate, it's become difficult to find shows willing to discuss, much less listen to, different points of view.
Our job is to talk about things we hope you'll find interesting without all the shouting.
To disagree without being disagreeable. To provide incisive, factual commentary that cuts through the weekly spin cycle and aims to enlighten, not enrage, our listeners.
So check out Civil Politics on your favorite podcast service or go to civilpoliticsradio.com.
Civil Politics is a member of the Planetside Podcast Network.
All right, so after learning so much about capitalism and about, all of that, what we want to talk about just things that make us happy. What is making you just so happy this episode, Nicole? Why? I'm really interested.
Okay, so I'm choosing between two things, so I'm going to go with whatever comes out of my mouth next. Monster Hunter Rise. Yeah, that. So,
yeah, okay.
I fucking love Monster Hunter. That's a video game series that started like in the early aughts on, I believe, the PlayStation 2. Essentially, you play as a vague group of aggressive fucking monster hunters. Don't think about the politics of the game very hard. That go and attack big fucking monsters and carve them up and make armor from them. And I've been playing this series since 2010, which I realized last week when the newest game on Switch, Monster Hunter Rise, came out. And I've been having a really fun time with it. It's a super good game.
Awesome.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say about it. There are dogs in it. You can pet the dog. You can pet an owl, and you can pet a cat.
You can pet an owl?
Yeah. I forget what the fucking owls are called because they're honestly not that big of a deal. But you got palamutes and you got palicos, and they're cute as fuck, and the game is super fun. And God, so my complaint about Monster Hunter when I first started playing it, and to be clear, I started playing that shit on, I believe, either PSP or 3DS, I forget, honestly. And it means a lot to see this series that I love so much get such good treatment on home consoles. When Monster Hunter World came out in 2019, 18, not sure. That game played smoother than I'd ever expected a Monster Hunter game to play, and with Rise, that trend continues pretty much completely. They've also come up with some really awesome ways to traverse the world, and there's a lot of verticality. I just think it's one of the more beautiful games on Switch as a platform, and also one of my high up there in terms of my personal Monster Hunter favorites. Great game. Everybody should play it if they have the opportunity to, unless, of course, you don't like thinking, because though it is an action game, you actually have to give it a lot of thought. And
a lot of RPG elements, a lot of math, or this gear does this, but you can replace it with this gear. Or...
Yeah, I mean, you you can get away with stacking shit, but gearing isn't super complicated. You just have to match elements and stuff. If you're good at Pokemon, you'll be good at this. The problem is combat. It's a little bit slower than normal games, and there's a lot less capacity to do cancels and stuff, and monsters do a lot of damage to you if you're not geared out specifically for defense. So you have to be both quick on your feet, dodging shit, and choosing opportunities to attack. And you also have to juggle a lot of information about the monster you're fighting, and be intentional with everything that you do in some of the harder fights. And that shit really gets me going. The strategy layered on top of some pretty in-depth combat layered on top of like managing the environment and a bunch of different shit. It's super fucking fun. Monster Hunter has always been like one of those games where it's the thinking gamer's action game. So yeah.
The thinking gamer's action game.
Yeah. So I fucking love it. It's super, super fucking fun. It kind of like
That's awesome.
reminded me how much I like the game and made me think about the fact that I've now been playing this series for over 10 years. So just nice all around.
Nice.
What's making you happy, Janra?
Well, one short thing. My thumb is finally like 80%.
Hey.
I can actually use it, use a mouse without being in a lot of pain, and I've been taking advantage of that and doing a lot of editing and show stuff. And we can get into that later. But the other thing is that so my bed frame, and it was like 15 years old at least. And it is broke as hell. And it was squeaky. If you've ever slept in a bed frame that isn't solid and it just sways, you know what I'm talking about. So we were able to get a new mattress and a new bed frame.
Hey.
Oh my God. Thank God. I did a lot of research, and it was a gift from my grandma, actually. She's been hounding after me because after my grandfather died, she wanted to use like the money that he had saved up to help the kids. So she's like, what can I do? What can I do? I'm like, man, I don't know. Jesus. Because in our family, we were also raised to be like self-sufficient. Like this is really important, like being able to pay your own bills, being able to figure things out. That's been very important to me. So when someone says like, I want to give you something, I'm like, I have no idea because I'm programmed not to think about gifts. That actually reminds me, like, Nicole was like, so we do you want to update your mic setup? We might be able to do that. I'm like, I did not consider that whatsoever. So example, but I did a lot of research. I looked into it and I got a new frame, a new mattress. If you listen to the last episode, you know I have a chronic pain condition. And because of the pandemic, we couldn't get anybody to help. So me and my wife carried a bed frame and a bed in a box upstairs and carried an old mattress and the pieces of the old frame downstairs over the course of 2 days. Jesus Christ. I'm going to be paying for that for a while, but I'm going to be paying for that with a new bed. So that is done, and things are like, I don't have to worry about like getting on the bed in the wrong way so a part falls off, because I've had to think about that for the past few years.
Shit.
So, woo, new bed. So that's my thing. And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to I Shouldn't Have to Say This.
Oh, and I forgot, I'm gonna get fucking vaccinated.
Oh, you're getting a shot?
Yeah, I'm getting my chip. I'm excited for the mod scene so I can play Doom.
I mean, you can't really mod it because it's from Windows. They don't really like you modding stuff.
Well,
like it's from like
I believe in the modding community. I think that we'll be able to play Doom within the next couple of years. Also, I'm excited for we're finally gonna get broadband because the 5G chips will link together and create a wide scale broadband access. So that will be really lit for humanity. You know what I mean?
I can't wait until I get my shot and I get that chip implanted. I can be a cyborg.
Yeah, I can't wait to be a hotspot, man. I'm tired of not having Wi-Fi outside of the house. It'll be lit. It'll be litty. So I'm excited.
Honestly, that's really awesome. So anyway, again, like I said, thank you so much for listening to I Shouldn't Have to Say This. If you have any thoughts or opinions or questions or anything like that, there are a few ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us, saythiscast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @saythiscast. Our DMs are open. We sometimes retweet stuff, and we definitely put out notices where when we update a show. We have a Discord.
We do.
Woo! You should. You should join our Discord. The link will be in the description. We will have alerts for whenever our new shows go up and different videos go up and discussion. We already have some great people in there. So come join and hang out with us if you're interested in learning more about the show and
getting your parasocial fix.
Yes, get your parasocial fix. That's a good way of putting it. We also have a YouTube channel that we've been running for a little bit. There are a few videos on there now, and there are going to be much more in the future, including video versions of our first year of podcasts. So if you like listening to us on YouTube, you can, or on podcast, you can go to YouTube. Also, link will be in the description, and it is on our website, saythiscast.com. And on saythiscast.com, you can listen to past episodes. If you want to support the show, you can do it a few different ways. There is Ko-fi. There's ko-fi.com/saythiscast. You can give us like a one-time, donation or whatever you want to call it. Or you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/saythiscast. We already have a few patrons, and we would love some more. If you go on the $10 level, you'll get extra content. We've already made like a few extra episodes, like mini episodes for our patrons. So patreon.com/saythiscast. Nicole, where can we find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jack of3Trades. That's 3 is in the number. And I have a Twitch. I have not been streaming. A bitch has been busy and also in pain, but I might at some point. So you can also follow me there, same name, if you feel like it, if you're interested in that type of thing.
You should. It's you should follow her and put on the notifications so you know when she streams, because it's a goddamn good time. I love watching your streams.
Thanks.
You can find me at PressStartLock on Twitter. And on Twitch, my handle is PressStartMorelock, and you can go there on Fridays. Mostly, we both have like chronic pain stuff, so sometimes it just doesn't happen. But you can go there on Fridays, 3 p.m., and we have a political chat. If you like this show, then you like that one. Our theme song is by Mustin. If you want to hear that or more music from him, then you can go to store.mustinenterprises.com. If you are listening or watching on YouTube right now, it would be really great if you threw us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Am I supposed to say that? The bell icon thing?
Just say something like self-referential about like how you're so sorry for asking, but it really does help. Also, tell us bitches to fucking comment and like the damn videos. Comment.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
That would be really helpful, honestly. If you subscribe to the YouTube, and if you're on a service where you can leave reviews, then leave us obviously a 5-star review or something, so the word gets out about the show. I Shouldn't Have to Say This is a member of the Planetside Podcast Network. To learn more, you can go to planetsidepodcasts.com.
It's what we do. It's capitalism. It's how it's always been. It's lifted this many people out of poverty. I mean, it's fucking amazing. It's the best thing that ever existed. And I'm like, okay, all of that aside, let's give all of that. Like, let's say it's all true. Not sure if it is. Not sure if I want to give it to them, but let's give it to them. Why the fuck do I care? because I feel like we can do better. Like, I always feel like humans can do better. I'm not like a pussy, so I think that we should always explore better options. But that's just me. The progress girl.
How dare you?
I'm a progress kind of bitch.
What'd you say?
I'm a progress kind of bitch.